Iconic Italian motorcycle marquee, MV Agusta, has a rich history in road racing. Granted, it's been a decade, or 4, since it was a true player. MV hopes to get back to its championship-winning roots with its F4R sport bike.
The F4R was an interesting experience, to say the least. I was very cautious getting on this bike because it's like hopping on a Ferrari, not in terms of performance, but in terms of price. And you don't want to be that guy that dropped the F4R. So took my time with it, slowly got up to speed, and it really wasn't all that impressive. I mean, it's got a good motor and it's pretty cool. It was really tall. You sat really high up on the bike, and so when you're trying to get down in the corner, it just feels so tall, it's harder to get over in the corner on that bike.
On track, I just couldn't come to grips with it. I think the traction control wasn't quite right. It was almost like driving a turboed car. You have to wait for the thing to spool up. That's what it seemed like.
Made it kind of hard to be aggressive with the bike coming out of the slower corners because you had to be really on your toes when you got on the gas, kind of waiting for the hits. And also the electronics really, when you're riding with the electronics, it really interferes with the way the bike accelerates out of the corners.
The MV's funny because it's like a raw motorcycle. It feels a little bit unfinished, it vibrates, like it does like quirky, like weird things, but it's so fun to ride. And the chassis on it is like, it delivers good feel. It's got good engine performance, and it's a great motorcycle. The only thing I think it could do better at is if the power was a little bit more linear, if it didn't have such a hit up top, and just got the weight down. Like in motion, it didn't feel that heavy, but at a standstill, it's heavy. It's one of the heaviest bikes in this test. It could be definitely a contender if it could lose some weight and just kind of improve the TC functionality a little bit.
The MV truly surprised us. Although it has some quirks, it still handles well and has serious top-end engine power. However, in Superpole, its times were toward the back of the group, which in part relegated it to 9th place. Added chassis and power band refinement could do wonders for this bike and help it better compete next season. Here in America, Yamaha's had plenty of success with its YZF-R1. Paired with the tuning savvy of Graves Motorsports and riding talent of Superbike racer Josh Hayes, it's proven to be the machine to beat in the AMA ranks. So for this test, we decided to follow their lead and fit it with a full Graves race pipe, DynoJet power commander, and quick shifter.
It's one of those motorcycles where you get on it and it's got the neatest sound. I love riding that motorcycle. Love it. Love the sound of it. The shifting, the brakes, everything is really good. It's still down on power compared to other bikes. It doesn't have that whoa factor out of the corners, but it does everything well. And I think just a little bit of tuning, that bike would be right there.
The cross-plane crank just makes it so easy to manage your power coming through a turn and out of a corner. It just kind of tractors through. It grabs traction the whole time, but it's not violent and it's not squirmy. It just kind of just motors through.
Their electronics package this year, I think it's new for 2012, and they've done an excellent job for their first year of electronics, traction control and wheelie control. Really fantastic. Not quite as good as Aprilia's, but you know, runner up to the Aprilia.
Graves Motorsports fitted their top of the line racing exhaust system on the thing, and it helped. It gave it a lot more top end power. Top end didn't fall off like it normally did, and it was crazy because in Superpole, I'm like, I'm gonna do good on this Yamaha. I'm Colin Edwards. I'm gonna do it up on the Yamaha, and I rode it hard, I thought, but then when my lap time was only like 2 minutes or something like that, I was like, what? Like that's all I did? But that just comes down to the bike. It just doesn't have as much beans. It's heavier, and while it handled well, it takes more effort to steer it. And at Thunder Hill, there's a lot of like fast, slow, a lot. And that's what kind of ultimately hurt the R1.
The R1 is a fun bike, but the numbers don't lie. And in Superpole, the Yamaha was the second slowest bike for Siglin and the slowest for Wahid. While the hop-up parts gave the R1 a much-needed acceleration boost, it wasn't enough for it to hang with the competition, thereby relegating it to 8th place. Ducati and racing are synonymous with one another. The Italian brand holds title to the most World Superbike Championships, so it's obvious that it knows how to engineer race-winning motorcycles. The 2012 Ducati 1199 Panigale S aims to add to that pedigree. For this test, we fitted a full Termignoni racing exhaust available as a Ducati accessory.
The thing rips, like motor-wise, it doesn't have as much torque as it used to as the previous generation motorcycle did, but man, it's got a ton of top-end power. And it's snappy now, it revs quick, and it blasts you forward. And it's a very, very light motorcycle. It's the lightest motorcycle in this test. So obviously a bike with a lot of power and not a lot of weight is gonna go very, very fast. And that's the Ducati.
Physically, the bike feels much smaller than the previous generation. The reach to the handlebars from the seat is considerably less this year, so the bike, again, it feels much smaller.
I loved it on the street, and I thought it was going to translate right to the track and make it easy to ride. Problem is, it's so skinny in the middle that when you're hanging off of it, there's nothing to hold on to with your legs, and you feel like you're going to fall off. It just makes it more difficult and a little bit more tiring in every corner when you're trying to hang off that thing. You're having to hold on harder with your arms because you can't use your legs as much.
It's a good handling motorcycle, but at our test, it was a very, very poor handling motorcycle. It was by far the hardest, most difficult bike to ride. You had to modify your riding style for it just because of the way it's set up. It wasn't set up optimally, it made it very, very difficult to ride.
They need to square away some of the handling issues. The motor is definitely fast. They have a very, very good top end on that bike, but the power band, the way it hits, definitely upsets the bike and had a bunch of us kind of scratching our head on what to do to fix the issue. But I think the first year model, there's no doubt that they're going to do a lot of R&D on the bike, and a really good platform, but definitely needs to work on a couple things.
In spite of the 1199's severe handling woes, it still achieved a respectable lap time in the hands of both riders. And if we would have nailed the setup, there's little doubt that the featherweight Ducati could have surprised some of the other big-name brands. While it'll have another chance next year, for now, the Ducati slots into 7th place. Eager to prove that it's capable of building more than just championship-winning off-road motorcycles, Austrian brand KTM is beginning to take superbike racing seriously. After having success in the German championship, it's pushing more aggressively in America with its KTM RC8R. For this test, we installed an Akrapovic kit race exhaust to better equip it for the track.
Bike turns on a dime. The way the center of gravity is on the thing, you can just flick it left to right, right to left, and it gets it done. I do feel the bike is down on power significantly compared to the other motorcycles, and that definitely holds the thing back. But chassis-wise, it's a great motorcycle, a lot of potential there.
Modifying that bike made it that much more fun. Now it's got some power, it pulls pretty hard all the way to the top, and the body position on it is so much different than all the bikes. You sit down in it, you feel like you're part of the bike a little bit more. And for a guy such as myself that doesn't do a lot of work on the track, it's really, really easy to ride.
Braking's really good on it. It just lacks the horsepower big time. You know, it signs off really early. No quick shifter, no electronics. KTM really, they're hurting themselves big time. If they can come up with some of those things in the next couple of years, they're gonna have themselves a great contender.
The one thing with the KTM is it doesn't reward a lazy riding style. With the RC8R, you gotta ride the crap out of it, man. It's a little bit down on power compared to the other bikes, and to make up with it, you really gotta ride it hard. But the good thing is, when you ride it hard, it's in its element. The chassis is just so fantastically composed. It's balanced. The fork on it is very responsive. I like the way it fits me. I can put my whole body behind the windscreen and get kind of like totally out of the air. Foot pegs are a little bit lower. It doesn't give me knee problems, and it's just a really comfortable, fun, and easy motorcycle to ride, even though it is not the quickest around the racetrack.
Even with its well-sorted chassis, the KTM didn't impress in Superpole, with both riders setting times that were at the tail end. High scores in a number of handling categories boosted it on the scorecard. However, its engine performance was the biggest factor in its 6th place finish. If there was any question how serious Aprilia takes motorcycle road racing, look no further than its RSV4 Factory APRC. This Italian-built sport bike was designed specifically for the rigors of World Superbike racing and has already achieved 1 title at the hands of Max Biaggi. To find out how it performs uncorked, we installed a full Akrapovic exhaust.
The RSV4 could be the best sounding bike here. It is such a cool sounding motor. I think it trumps the R1 just a little bit in sound quality. It's a fun bike to ride. It's super light. It flicks in the corners easier than almost every bike here in the tight corners. It's just so light, so nimble. A little bit of body English goes a long way on that bike.
It feels like an R6 almost with a whole lot of horsepower. I really like that bike in the tight stuff. And the tight stuff, man, right to left, just you can make it happen. And down the straightaway, the feel that thing has, a lot of torque, it feels like, and it's fast, does everything pretty well.
That V4 engine, I mean, you can't go wrong. It pulls off the corner, and that bike can rev. A lot of fun to ride. Physically, dimensionally, it's a little small for a taller rider.
I'm a smaller guy, so the bike fits me really well. It's a very compact bike, good ergos, good brakes. Their electronics is probably the top out of all the bikes with the electronics right now. The traction control is nice and smooth on how it cuts the power. The wheelie control is nice and smooth. Really impressed. That's probably the bike that had me the most surprised out of all of them.
This probably has one of the, if not the best front suspension of any Superbike production. Like it's unbelievable how sensitive that fork is. Like it really inspired a lot of confidence. Like coming in the corners, you know, on the front brakes, trail braking, it made it just easier to ride. And you always kind of knew where you're at when you were riding the Aprilia.
Because of its maneuverability and overall chassis composure, the Aprilia was one of our favorites. Although its Superpole performance was mid-pack, the harder we rode it, the better it performed. And if it had a little more oomph on the top end, it could have easily run up front. Until that happens though, the RSV4 finishes in 5th. Suzuki GSX-R sport bikes dominate the road racing scene here in America. Whether it's the AMA Pro ranks or at the club level, it's clear the Gixxer is one of, if not the most popular platform to compete on, due in part to its simplicity and how easy it is to modify for racing. So for our test, it was fitted with the Yoshimura full race pipe, Pizzazz Performance fuel module, and quick shifter.
So the GSX-R really surprised me. Right when I got on it, I was comfortable, and within a lap, I was up to speed, which all the other bikes took 1 or 2 laps for me to get used to them. This one, really in a half a lap, I was on the gas, dragging knee, and going faster than almost every other bike right off the get-go. It's pretty awesome. It's up in the top of all the bikes that I rode this week.
The Pizzazz quick shifter and the Yoshimura pipe really helped that bike, gave it a little more a little more boost up top, and just made it so much, you know, gear shifts are just bam, ba bam, ba bam, ba bam. It's one constant gear almost with the quick shifter.
It really kind of let out all the rest of the power that was kind of being backed up by, you know, the stock exhaust, and it handles good, it turns, it's flickable like a 600. It's going to be a top contender for the win here.
The brakes seem to be the big weak point for me. At least this weekend here, we really fought with brake fade. Don't know what exactly that is. I know that's been a problem in the years past with the Suzukis. I remember that being an issue last year as well with the brake fade, especially at a track like Thunder Hill. We have a lot of hard braking from fast to slow, and long-term braking there, and you've got a lot of fade, and it doesn't exactly instill any kind of confidence in the bike. It's a good package. Unfortunately, it just nothing versus the other bikes. It just wasn't quite there. It didn't have it.
Superpole results demonstrate that the Suzuki is an effective racetrack weapon, with it logging Wahid's third fastest lap time and Siglin's fifth. The primary factor that held the Suzuki back from a better finish was the brake fade issues and its predictable but ultimately average handling. If Suzuki could dial in those two aspects of the Gixxer, it would have won this year, no question. Kawasaki is an omnipresent force at racetracks worldwide, but it still hasn't achieved the results some expected with the new Ninja ZX-10R. So is it the ideal platform to compete on? To find out, we tested it against the current crop of leader bikes with a Leo Vinci GP Pro slip-on exhaust, Dynojet Power Commander 5, and quick shifter.
Power of the thing is pretty impressive, especially now that it's dialed in with that Leo Vinci pipe and all the work that Joey from Kawasaki's done to it. It moves.
It's got a hell of a motor, but when I was riding it, it felt so slow. It felt so dang slow. That's because it puts the power to the ground in such a linear way. Like that bike, it's surprising how fast you can ride it, how composed the chassis is.
Everything flows. Bike turns great. Mid-corner, bike feels super light. Going right to left, the flickability of the bike is super fast. And really, when you put input in, you get a result like that.
The bike is just night and day from last year. Good power, great handling, mid-corner, great front end feel. The electronics package is good, not as good as the Aprilia, but it's getting better. As the time show from the shootout that it was the fastest bike. Not by much over the Honda, but it definitely, it's a really, really good package right now, and I think everybody needs to watch out for the Kawasaki because it's coming up the ranks pretty quick.
A solid chassis and great overall engine performance is the recipe for fast laps, and that's exactly what the Green Machine did. With Chris Siglin at the controls, the Cowie recorded the fastest outright lap time of the test. But lap times aren't everything, and while the Ninja had a well-rounded package, the top two proved just a hair better, leaving the Kawasaki in third place. Now in its fourth year of World Superbike racing competition, German motorsports powerhouse BMW is beginning to collect race wins. Is it because of its fresh rider lineup, or the brute force of its S1000RR sport bike? Despite initial interest in showcasing its kit racing pipe for this test, curiously, at the last minute, BMW decided to participate in stock form.
The bike is so fast, yet produces really good feedback. The feel you get out of a corner on that bike is amazing. It's like no other. And it leaves you scratching your head like, oh my gosh, that bike just has that factor, yet it does everything well. And it's so exhilarating to ride.
Turns in a little bit easier, finishing off the corner, like corner exit. Bike actually wants to, stay in instead of kind of push out like it used to want to do. So props to BMW for taking an already great bike and fixing the little issues they had with it and making it an even better bike.
The electronics are probably on the bottom line of the electronics compared to the others. BMW has yet to smooth out their TC and also the wheelie control. It is a little abrupt. So that needs to be worked on for hopefully maybe further years.
It's got tons of power, and at first you're intimidated by how much power it has. You're like, I don't know if I can rein this thing in on this track, but it lets you use all the power. It's really easy to ride, especially if you put it in the race mode. Slick mode, it's a little more aggressive. It's a little bit tougher for me to ride, so I throw it into race mode, and it's a piece of cake.
But it's still gnarly. It's still 175 horsepower at the back tire. When you get on it, like dude, even a guy like me, like I've been riding bikes a long time, it scares me. It's hard to hang on to. It's fast, it's aggressive. But that's why I like the bike. Like, if I had to buy a bike for riding around the track or even racing, it would be the BMW, just because it feels the fastest. It's just got the most racetrack personality for me. Like, I just love the sound of the engine. I love wailing on it. And, you know, it does take maybe a little bit more work to ride than maybe the Honda or the Kawasaki, but, you know, it's fun. It's worth it. The extra work is, in the end, it pays dividends because it just makes it more fun to ride, a better experience.
When everything was on the line in Superpole, the BMW fared well, setting the third fastest lap time of the test. While the BMW impressed with its hard-charging motor and crazy strong brakes, it's still a very challenging motorcycle to ride at pace. That, along with a few average scores in the subjective categories, knocked the Beamer down to the runner-up spot for this season. Make no mistake about it, Honda is an engineering company, first and foremost. Its existence revolves around creating solutions to transportation problems. And for road racers seeking the quickest way to get around racetracks worldwide, it offers the 2012 CBR 1000RR. Since this was a racetrack-only test, we mounted up a Yoshimura pipe, Dynojet Power Commander 5, and quick shifter.
Once again, Honda showed up with their game face. The bike is typical Honda. Does absolutely nothing wrong. Easy to ride, good mid-range torque off of the corner.
They have it totally dialed in with the pipe and the quick shifter and everything. Like, the shifts on that thing are solid, perfect, best shifting out of any bike here. So easy to just grab a gear, whether it's underload, up a hill, bouncing off the rev limiter, wherever it's at, it shifts, and it shifts perfectly.
Feel, the motor, you know, the handling, everything about it is such, Honda has always nailed it. Unfortunately, they don't have TC, wheelie control, any of those other goodies. That seems to be the new norm now with all the production bikes. So hopefully next year, or in coming years, they'll have to come out with something.
I still wish it had more power up top. It definitely falls off. Mid-range is good, bottom end is pretty decent, but it needs a power boost up top. If it had one of those, it would for sure be probably the bike I would pick to race, you know, just if it had more top end power.
Sure doesn't feel the fastest, but when you're out riding the thing, it produces some of the fastest lap times, at least for myself this weekend. So you can just really ride the bike hard, and when you ride it hard, it produces results.
If I just wanted like a durable track day bike that I knew was always going to work, never had to mess with anything, didn't have to mess with the suspension clickers, didn't have to change the oil every single day, just wanted to ride the crap out of it, the Honda would be it, especially when you throw a pipe and a quick shifter on it.
From the engine to the chassis, the Honda presents the best overall package. Despite being down on top-end power, its cornering superiority helped it achieve the second fastest time overall, but the fastest combined. That, along with top scores in 5 other categories, allowed it to steal the crown away from the mighty BMW, proving that the CBR 1000RR is indeed the best superbike of 2012.